good evening, everyone. Welcome to Two Moons and a Microphone. My name is Tanya Scott Thomas. I love fantasy, but I keep it real. So this is season 2 of Two Moons and a Microphone, and it is sponsored by Housebar. Housebar is the bottle shop remixed for adventurous drinkers, foodies, and home entertainers. Housebar is here to help you gather well, live fully, and celebrate intentionally. Visit Housebar in Navy Yard or Georgetown here in the DMV. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on Two Moons and a Microphone. This is a very special episode where we are talking about ElfQuest and mental health. Many fans have said in chats and in the forums that ElfQuest saved their life, and I wanted to talk about it with my very good friend, Allison Brudno.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Allison. So for those who don't know, Allison is the person who lent me her ElfQuest books. So if it weren't for Allison, I wouldn't be here nerding out on YouTube talking about ElfQuest 30-some years later. Anyway, so thank you, Allison, for loaning me your books, introducing me to the world of Two Moons, and for suggesting this topic for tonight's episode. But first, I always like to start off with your ElfQuest story. So I got my ElfQuest story from you. So please share with everyone your ElfQuest story.
So, excuse me. My ElfQuest story isn't so dissimilar from yours. I was visiting, hanging out with my friend Pam, and was perusing her bookshelf and discovered this really colorful, book. It was the Dunning, colored, group thing. And I sat there and read that thing. I think she got annoyed with me. It turns out they were her brothers, and I begged her to let me borrow them. So she let me take them under penalty of death if I ruined them, and I had to return them pretty quickly so she wouldn't get in trouble with her brother. And then I got my own.
And then I borrowed them from you, and then I got my own. So thank you, Pam and Pam's brother. I hope you're doing well out there. So Allison, you are a board certified psychiatric nurse practitioner, and we were talking, and as you were studying for your boards, you were saying that you were rereading ElfQuest, and you started kind of psychoanalyzing some of the characters. Is that right?
As one does. I also diagnose people on TV and reality shows in my spare time. So
yes. So as we were talking, and as I mentioned before, people have said that ElfQuest saved their life, or it came to them at a time in their lives where it just made such an impact. And why do you think that is? I mean, what is it about ElfQuest to you as a professional? Why do you think that it resonates with people so much?
I think the thing that is really important to ElfQuest and the themes that run behind it are this idea of community and bridging divides, bringing people together. From the get-go, their whole opening sequence of that first volume is someone who is being discriminated against. So you're entering a world that speaks to isolation and marginalization, discrimination, bullying, and the devastation that brings. And so you are immediately understanding that you're bringing yourself into a world that identifies people who are, as I had said before, othered, and finding their tribe. And I think everyone can resonate with that. And then as you read deeper, you see the representation of all types, you know, bringing in different cultures, but in the realm of these elves, you know, there's people of color, there's different practices, there are different belief systems. Like the Sun folk have a totally different belief system than the Wolf Riders. There's, you know, the LGBTQ AI plus like community in a lot of ways is represented. Even the trolls represent something. And everybody, I think, can identify with that. And it gives you comfort and a little hope, and you feel like you're part of a group.
I agree 100%. I think it just has so many different characters that everyone can find someone that either, you know, they want to be like, or somebody that represents them in some way. And it just comes from like a really good story, I think, first of all. And then it comes from a genuine place. I think Wendy Peeney has shared in other interviews that growing up, being adopted and not feeling like she fit in with her family, that, you know, she was seeking her own tribe and acceptance, and writing this story is semi-autobiographical in a lot of ways to her story. And, you know, Cutter is her avatar. And I think it just, unlike some of the other comic books that people might read, where it's, you know, it's like superheroes and they're just bashing people, and there's just so much more meat to kind of sink into and get lost in, and also find yourself in.
There's something incredibly tangible about the emotions that are depicted, the breadth of personality, trauma is represented. You know, people make mistakes. People have things they have to work through. There are characters we don't always love, trying to find what's redeeming in one another and about healing one another. I think that's really well represented in sort of the dynamic between, you know, Lita and Winnowill. Like, she's just, I really identify with that as a healthcare professional. Like, you're a piece of work, but I'm going in because you're always worthy. You know, like, there's a space within ElfQuest where everybody feels welcome and worthy and deserving of healing and love and friendship.
Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah, because they've kind of set it out that nobody is completely good or bad. It's always on this spectrum of nuance, and this fight between what the Pennies have said, between like knowledge and ignorance. So it's not that, even Winnowill, like, there is space for redemption, even at the last chapter in Final Quest. When we were reading it, they were still open, like leaving it open that, you know, you could be good if you just, or not even good, just like free. Like, she could be free. There's still space to heal there. It's still possible. Like, it's never completely over. And I like that openness and that optimism that is portrayed, even though you get to see some very dark moments, some dark times. There is, like you said, there's lots of trauma, and I mean, there's torture, there's fears of all kinds, there's phobias. I mean, you get like something very like relatable with Cutter. He just has a fear of heights. I mean, he's had a lot of traumatic things happen. He's lost both of his parents very young. He's all this responsibility thrust upon him, and he's responsible for the lives of this entire tribe. That's a lot of pressure, but at the end of the day, he's scared of heights. Like that's like his deepest fear at that time in his life. And it's just so interesting to see all of those things playing out, like these big problems and small problems. And like you said, there is like always something to like grab somebody and either help them through a hard time or just kind of take them away from the reality they're dealing with to, you know, see things in a different way.
The breadth, the depth of the characters, about who they are and what they're working through is stunning. That, even in novels where you have far more space for character development, the fact that within a comic that's translated through pictures as well as just conversation and little blips of background information, we are able to get this depth of character and complexity of character within these books is just, it's amazing. It's amazing to me. It's not Superman or Batman with like kerpow and like, everything's hunky-dory at the end. It's like life. It's really reflective of life in a lot of ways, where things get messy and complicated and joyous and beautiful.
Yeah, very beautiful. Very much so, Draco Dawn Stars. And I just want to take a moment to say hi to everyone in the chat and thank you for riding with me all season. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all the things that you've shared, like on the comments in the Facebook group. And that's really what kind of inspired me to, have the show, to kind of acknowledge that I've seen, and I think you've seen them too, Allison, you've been in the Facebook group a long time. Like people have shared really personal stories and how deeply ElfQuest affected them and helped them through some very troubling times and got them through to the other side. And is that something that you encounter in your professional life? Like,
I think one of the most effective tools that people experience when they get mental health care is learning that they don't have to be ashamed, because you feel like you have to hide. There are many cultures, including our own, that are not always so receptive, and people pick up on that. They're worried about their jobs, they're worried about their relationships, and they don't want to disclose that they're struggling. Sort of have a space where it feels safe, initially introduced through the pages and these characters, to then have this community. In mental health, when you find a community, you find people that are seeing similar things or accepting you for who you are, with grace. That sense of belonging is freeing. People are freed from hiding and isolating and feeling trapped within themselves, because suddenly I'm not alone. There is a community of people who understand, and I don't have to explain, and I don't have to justify, and I don't have to feel ashamed about anything, and it's tremendously powerful.
Yeah. And I think like more recently, the stigma behind seeking mental health or prioritizing it, I guess, has the stigma has kind of gone away. I think a little bit. It's lessened, let's say. I think so it is a good thing that more people are looking for the help that they need, and they don't feel so isolated, or they feel like they have to kind of struggle alone without getting professional help. And I think seeing stories like the way the characters are kind of portrayed in ElfQuest, it helps people realize that, you know, I can seek help. I don't have to be this isolated in this way, that there are other people like me there, that I am, you know, the things that I'm feeling are valid.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important, because I think, you know, I grew up, I had a parent who struggled with mental health, and, you know, it ended tragically. And it took a long time for me to kind of make peace with that and not like feel guilty or abandoned, like that it, you know, it wasn't all a conscious choice that my mother, this is my mother, was like completely in control of. It's like an illness, just like if she had had cancer or, you know, heart disease or something like that. And it takes a long time to kind of understand that. I think that people nowadays are just starting to realize that, you know, mental health is just as important as physical health.
Mm-hmm.
So
Seeking treatment, getting medications, going to therapy, going to group therapy, going to support groups, you know, making that first step is sometimes for people the hardest thing to do, but once they do, they're free. Like, it may not all be perfect, you may not find the right provider, but it's out there, and just getting through the door, picking up the phone, whatever it is, just taking that first step is your first step to, you know, addressing those things. We all have stuff. Nobody is free of stuff. You know, people, if you look at the numbers of the number of people, you know, who have mental health issues, and this includes background of childhood trauma and, you know, depression, anxiety, you know, schizophrenia, bipolar, whatever, you take all those numbers, that's a hell of a lot of people who feel like they can't talk about it, you know, and don't always seek help or can't always find it. And that's heartbreaking to me. You know, as well, I have my own history of suicide in my family with my uncle, and it colored my entire life. The death of my uncle still affects my father to this day. You know, it was probably likely a little bit in the background of why I chose this profession. And I just don't want people to feel like they're struggling. And even if the open door is reading something like ElfQuest and recognizing that you're not alone, that you don't have to sit there with your trauma or your pain or your sadness, you know, is everything to me.
yeah, I think it is. I think like what you were saying about a community is what we as a society need a lot more of, especially right now. This has been a really like trying year, very difficult for many different reasons. Professionally, not this podcast. This podcast has been great. I'm really proud of some of the conversations and the episodes that we've had, and working on this has been a really great distraction from my day job. And it's just been very stressful. Let's just say, I don't want to divulge too much about it, but I live in the Washington, D.C. metro area, and our industry is very much affected by things that occur here. So it was very stressful this year. We also had our big sister, Subrina Wood, one of the sci-fi sisters, passed away from pancreatic cancer last month. And that was very difficult. But I could take solace in the fact that Subrina was one of the founding members of Sci-Fi Sisters, and what she built, like her legacy just means so much. She touched so many people and helped create this space and this community here with Sci-Fi Sisters Inc. and like bringing me in to come do this podcast. I am so grateful for her, and we did not have enough time with her here, but her impact will be felt for many, many years to come, because I mean, just the way people responded to what they created with the Sci-Fi Sisters is just unmanageable. I mean, you cannot quantify it. It just makes me so happy every time they do a celebrity interview, and if it's like a celebrity of color and they hear Sci-Fi Sisters and they're like, Sci-Fi Sisters, oh, and then they like, that is my favorite thing in the whole world. Like just that one moment where like they like that, like they see each other and they get represented, and they're like the love and the way that people just like the walls break down and the connections that they make with this, like it inspires me. I want to be more like them. I want to be more like the Sci-Fi Sisters. I want to have a community here with the ElfQuest fans and get more ElfQuest fans and be a safe space. So I don't know.
You know, the beauty of community.
Yes. Thank you for bringing me back.
It makes you feel seen. So what the Sci-Fi Sisters have built, her legacy, Wendy and Richard's legacy, is you open those pages, just like when you watch the Sci-Fi Sister podcast. You, even if you've been sitting in your basement for 2 weeks straight wearing the same pajama bottoms and eating frozen meals, like you go into those pages or watch these episodes and go, I feel seen. People don't feel seen. And they get me. Whether you're being a nerd, if you're struggling with something, I mean, that's what really struck me, was the immediate parallels that I could find to my own life, to my culture, within the pages of ElfQuest. It was all there. It may not have been a direct correlation, but it was there. And I was like, I am not alone, and I found my people in the ElfQuest community that is so robust and brilliant and beautiful and engaged. Do that for each other. We see each other, we hear each other, we hold space for each other. Even if you don't know what to say, if someone's saying something really intense, just holding space for them and allowing them to just be seen is incredibly powerful.
I agree. That is such a good point. When some people have shared in the Facebook group or, online in some other space, the reception is, for most of the parts that I've seen, like you said, they're just holding space. Like they're letting it breathe. They're letting it go out there. And even if like you don't exactly know what to say, somebody does. Like sometimes I'm struck by like how personal some of the things that some people have shared, and I don't know what to say. Like I haven't experienced that exact thing. I feel for their pain, and I am struck by their bravery to share so much in such a public forum. And I'm always impressed and comforted by the fact that somebody else out there knows how, like, what to say back to this person and the people out there. So I'm very proud of that, like, fan base, that community. They are extremely wise and multifaceted and very caring. And that is an amazing legacy also that Wendy and Richard Pini have created with this fandom and this fan base that they, help shepherd. Like they really are kind of like parents when they've called themselves like Elf Mom and Elf Pop, and all of these kids out here like are running around. Like
there's some really simple things that we can say to one another that tie us all together, that we're all capable of saying. And it's things like, I'm sorry, I love you, I see you, I hear you, I validate you, you have a right to feel how you feel. All of those things are so simple, but do such powerful things. And sometimes silence is powerful. I think, in my practice, just giving space for people to talk, gently ask a question and then let them go. And then to just say at the end of it, I see you, is people relax, people enter the space more authentically. They don't feel so guarded. And, ElfQuest and the community do a great job of doing that. They really do.
Oh, very much so. I love that you were rereading ElfQuest while you were studying for this board certification. I mean, first when you told me that you were because you were like it was an OB nurse before?
Yeah. NICU, OB, and a sexual assault nurse examiner, forensic examiner.
And so finding that safe place, because I would imagine that is very stressful, like
a little bit
taking on like a new skills and going back to school and kind of shifting your career slightly, and also the career you had before I know is hella stressful. So I think it blows me away that like all of these years later that you're rereading ElfQuest just like lots of us and still finding something like comforting and soothing there. I think that just speaks to so much, like that's why we're here. I just want to note that if you wanted to share anything about that.
It's an escape. It's a place that's beautiful. It's colorful. When you're feeling like dark and stressed and overwhelmed, I can open up those pages, even if the content is intense. Like if the part that I'm reading, like, oh Lord, do shine and recognition, that's hard, and Winnowill torturing whoever she's torturing that day, like, even if the content's dark, it's still an escape, and it reminds me of beautiful things and just allows me to pause and take a moment. And they're so beautifully, nicely compacted into these comic book length stories, so like you can get through one pretty quickly even if you're busy, and say, okay, that was my moment of self-care. I do have to get back to work, but
Oh my gosh, 100%. I mean, I have to say, like when I was like really getting back into ElfQuest, I was home with these little children, like I was, working from home with twin children. Like it was a lot. Like the one thing I could do was, I can get this comic book like once every, I think it's like, it came out like once every other month. So it's enough space, but then something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And then something that was like just for me. Like I wasn't like mommy or like wifey or whatever. Like it was, I made a conscious effort to maintain one thing that was like me before I was like all these other stages of my life. And it is a form of self-care to have that, just like thumbing through it. Sometimes I just like open up my like this, like I have them in this like armoire type thing and just like look at it. Like this was like the culmination of years of like hunting down books and flipping through pages, and it just makes me feel good, like just to like have it, not from like a consumerism kind of point of view, but just like this is like just like a part of me. It's a part of my life, and I can remember like every, when I got this book, like, or when I read this, or when I saw that page. And I'm very nostalgic because I don't know, I'm a Pisces, I'm an old soul, so I always get old things, and it is good to have those things that can give you comfort when life gets very stressful, and we are grateful for that. And I just want to say to the people in the chat, I see your comments and I agree 100%. Vanessa and Gaiety's Toys, very much new. Thank you for joining us in the chat. And Draco Downstars, my ride or die. Thank you so much. Yeah, it is, I don't know, it's an interesting way to kind of heal yourself through these fandoms, because you hear a lot about toxic fandoms, and I'm just glad that we like have this more nurturing fandom, and the Trekkies as well. Thank you, Tamia.
Oh, yes.
Because I think that there's like there's a common thread where, both societies in like Star Trek and ElfQuest, like they're trying to be the best they can. Like they aspire to be better, to not just be down in like this like warring, divisive place, like that there is an ideal to work toward. And I think that's why it's so great, and why people have loved it for so many years over and over again.
That question. Who is my favorite character? Well, I have said this many times, but I am a die-hard ride or die Petal Wing fan. I feel like that little winged creature was misunderstood, but she's so loyal. And I call her a she. She may not be a she, she's probably not, but they are so loyal and so unbelievably cute and tenacious and reliable. It may not always work out perfect. Their choices may be questionable in the end, but they're just so pure at heart, the preservers. So I like the sort of hidden characters in any story that I read. I like these little underdogs and misunderstood characters. They mean a lot to me. And so I don't always gravitate towards the most obvious. Huge fan of Lita, because who isn't really? She's like my, I want to be her when I grow up. And then I love Winnowill because she's beautiful and complicated and so messy.
Super messy. I have an idea for I have an idea for next season.
Disorder for sure. I've definitely diagnosed her. So
yeah, she's got a lot. I mean,
yeah,
a lot.
I think Winnowill is a perfect example of something like narcissistic, antisocial, probably a little borderline personality disorder. And then like her son is a good representation of like what childhood trauma can do to people. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's so well done. Like
yes.
just the way it's not like, I mean, Two Edge is a very, he's a complicated character. He kind of starts out as a villain and then has this kind of redemption. And you don't always get that with comic book characters. And I'm sorry, it is just brilliant the way
It's
like
so
he's
brilliant.
half elf, half troll, and his like brilliant fractured brain is like, I need to have a physical war between elves and trolls to figure out which one am I going to be? Like, who's the best? Like, I'm so torn when like between these two identities that he had to like actually make it happen and orchestrate all these and pull all these strings for like hundreds of years to have this culmination of this war, which you know is in book 4, which is out now, by the way. So
hello.
In the new Dark Horse hardcover, remastered, colored book.
So cool. Two Edge is, I'm just stunned. Knowing what I know now, like I didn't know any of this about him then, but you could identify like someone who's gone through this like really traumatic childhood, who is then lashing out. He's angry, he's irritable, he, you know, toys with people. But you could get sort of this thread of pain and desperation for understanding that he had. And you finally, like, you slowly unpack this. And then when he starts to develop these like relationships with other people that, you know, are deep and fostered, again, going back to people needing to feel to see, be seen, you know, he's got, you know, to me, like he's got psychosis and PTSD and like all this other stuff. But like, you know, all of he's a perfect example that not everybody is lost. Someone just has to put in the time, you know, and that's not to say people should always have a savior, you know, the right people or reaching out for the right help, you know, can get you to a place of maybe not perfect peace, because there's no perfect pill. And, you know, you kind of need like medication and therapy and all these things to kind of get you where you need to be. But he was such a spectacular representation that encapsulates just the depth and the understanding Wendy and Richard have of the human psyche.
I agree. I think so too. There are other characters and storylines that have kind of mirrored, you know, these human experiences and kind of given a path for people to kind of heal. And I think a lot about Ekwar as this, his resilience. And I mean, he's been tortured. He's disabled. Like if you or he has a disability, and like the way that he doesn't hold on to that, like he had this terrible past, but he's still like he's looking to the future, and he's still kind of himself. He still has like kindness for other people, and he takes care of Rayek, who is a very difficult person to get along with, and he stays by his side. He stays very loyal to him throughout, even when he does some kind of awful things, and also checks him on it. Like I love, like in Kings of a Broken Wheel is like my favorite. That is my favorite storyline. And you know, Rayek is about to commit genocide, and he's like, well, okay, that's when Ekwar is like, well, I can't be with you for this one. And it is the coldest line when Venka tells him, like, well, you better say goodbye to Ekwar before you do it. Like, because he's gone. Like, I mean,
she's so great.
Oh my God, she's the cold. I wish I could have that, like, just steely, just cool, like, all the time. I mean, I'm an emotional person. I get very passionate, as I tell my kids. I wish get very excited. And, I hate when I see like, inconsiderate things happening in my house. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I just get very passionate and like, whatever. But I wish I could be that cool. But yeah, I think that, characters like that, just to show that, even if you're physically not as whole as you started out, you're still a person. Like, that doesn't take away from who you really are. Like, I just think that, there's just so many great stories, great characters that show kindness, that don't like, and then that don't like. I mean, Kavi always resonates with me. I think, because she's a difficult mother and I had a difficult mother. So I kind of get her, like, she's not at all, cushy, like, but she raises people to be, prepared for the hard life that they have. Like, they have this very like physically cold and very brutal life of war, and you can't be like soft and cushy in that kind of environment. Like, and I don't know, I kind of get her. I don't know why. I know some people do.
I get her. My grandmother was a copy. And she was not warm and cuddly, and she could cut you to the bone, and like very East Coast Bostonian. And it's that same sort of breadth of character development. She's never gonna soften. She has these tiny little moments where she is vaguely squishy, vaguely, like it may be the difference between a moment of her being a brick and another one being like, a carpeted floor, but like it's not like, but who she will tell you like it is, exactly who she is. It's so straightforward without, making airs or having bells and whistles or trying to deceive anybody. It may be harsh, but take it or leave it. This is what you get. And I can respect that.
Yeah. I mean, she's a little messy too with the
of course she is.
I mean, very messy. But
very.
But yeah, I mean, I grew up, I have, some West Indian grandparents, and, it was very, I mean, there was the love was there, but at the same time, like, you got to be ready, like, so I don't know, maybe that's it. Maybe I've discovered something else. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's valid. It's valid. It's a good point that, depending on how you grew up, even speaking about resiliency, did you learn resiliency? Did you have just enough to build that within you that was coupled with some self-confidence, so it became a positive thing, as opposed to feeling helpless or subjected to pain, like being a victim? Are you a victim, or are you a survivor? Or are you somewhere in between? Most of us are in between. We're really great at handling some stuff, and other stuff just kicks us in the teeth and makes us curl up in a ball, reading ElfQuest and not doing much else.
Yep. Yeah, it's about the dark winter. So, I have to like force myself to like go outside when it's light outside, to like move around. Because I think I've learned, like, the good thing about getting to this age is like knowing, like seeing when those kind of dark moods are going to come, and knowing, okay, like you have to fight against that. I mean, I definitely had a depression after my mother died, and it took a while to kind of get out of that like cloud, out from under that. And, dealing with grief is something that I've seen it like related to like a box, like with a balloon inside. And sometimes the balloon is taking up the entire box. And sometimes it's like deflated and it's just like a little piece in the box. But I think that is something that like I've learned over the years is like to kind of fight against those like, I don't know. I think what you said it best, like set boundaries and kind of like see when you can handle something yourself by doing certain things, like, I don't know, like exercise or go outside or read something that you love or watch a movie that you love, or seek out more help from someone like you or something like that.
I think the comment that someone just made about like generational trauma, ritualized generational trauma, hiding behind authority. I mean, that's another version of things. I think we're living some of that right now in some scenarios in the world, but generational trauma for sure is a thing, and people go one way or another with it. There's lots of research happening now on the idea of like things like depression, trauma, creating inflammation in the body that affects you down to the cellular level. And so if your parent was traumatized and their parent was traumatized, I don't think it's crazy to think about how that affected, the creation, say, of you down into the DNA. And yeah, some people get authoritarian with it. I think Kavi was the kind of leader that they needed and they clearly accepted. They would have kicked her out at any point. I think she would have relinquished leadership if that was the will of her tribe. But yeah, she's authoritarian and it's not always kind, and she didn't allow enough softness in her life. That was probably how she was raised and the people before her were raised. And, I think for a lot of characters, there was always a moment where they could have made a better choice somewhere along the way. We've all done it. And ideally you learn from it. And some people don't. Kavi chose to kind of stay stuck.
Yeah, she was a little like lost towards the end, like seeking, like the thrill seeking is sort of, part of that. I also think of Bearclaw a lot with the comment from Clarence Oddbody there with the generational abuse masked as authority. I think Bearclaw in the Wolf Rider story, they take. It's a great examination of, how that like tit for tat, like ratchets up everything and just ends up destroying everybody. Bearclaw's like feud with the humans and his drinking. I mean, they have him drinking all this Dreamberry wine. He's like physically abusive. And Cutter adopts a little bit of that, like just being raised by Bearclaw. Like he kind of goes like to, hit first. He's very much like impulsive and physical. That's kind of the nature of wolf riders in a way. They're hunters. They're very physical, and they've had a hard life, just trying to survive. And as the story evolves, Cutter sees that, like there's that scene in like Hidden Years where he's about to like hit Ember and she's like, hey, like, what's up with that? Like, and he's like, oh, that was a great moment. That was great for me to see. Like, I grew up with, like I said, these West Indian grandparents. My parents were from Bermuda, and like corporal punishment was absolutely a real thing. And like being a parent now, like we definitely, my husband and I were like, well, we don't want to do that. We don't want to grow up like hitting our kids. That's just like not the kind of parents we want to be. We do a lot of talking and explaining, and there's still like this internal reaction, like, because when you see your kids do something and you're like, I would be dead right now. Like, I mean, I'm joking. Like, I wouldn't, my parents were not that abusive, but you're just like, you would never say it. Like, you would just like, and it's like, you still have the reaction because you grew up like that there's supposed to be this kind of physical response, but you're not doing it, but you still feel the like impulse, right? But you're working against it. And they don't even like appreciate all of this restraint that you're working. Like it blows me away sometimes. Like we're here every day. I mean, I was coming home with a like key or like a string around my neck. Like there was no one home. And like,
we were feral. We were raised
completely feral.
Like completely wild animals. Unlooked after, completely neglected, whatever, just feral little animals with keys around our necks until our parents came home. And nobody knew where we were or what we were doing as long as we showed up for dinner. Like,
right. And we're here when they get home, and there's like snacks and like you feel like there's all this support, and they're like, oh, we'll take you to this class and that class and we'll practice this. And my husband's like doing extra math support, and like you feel like for all of that equity, like that you should get like automatic respect, but like kids are still kids, and they're still gonna like just challenge your authority regardless of like how cuddly you are. And that's a hard pill to swallow, I think. Like,
yeah.
I mean, as we work on ourselves and try to, be better than our parents and let go of some of that.
That there's improvement, right, with each generation. I feel like I've seen that within my own family, where like my grandparents were a certain way, then my parents were a certain way, but better. And then I'm better with my kids than, say, my parents ever were, and certainly my grandparents. And so, the hope is that my children will raise completely healthy humans if they choose to have some of their own or adopt or whatever. But, like just hopefully it's trickling down.
Yeah, I hope. I mean, I like you were saying about like giving grace, like I hope that you could see, like I had to learn this with my parents. Like you think that like adults are, that they know everything and that they know better, but they really don't. Like we're all just trying our best. And, I could appreciate that like my parents tried their best with me. It wasn't great all the time, or at least, my dad is great. I love my dad, but, it's, I hope that my kids will see that we like really try to help them be as successful and happy. And this world is a lot more complicated. So there was a lot of like mental health struggles during the pandemic, during the lockdown. It was really hard on the kids, and it was hard to figure out like what to do to help them being isolated. And there aren't enough mental health like practitioners out there. There are not enough practitioners of color that understand some of the more nuanced generational cultural things. Like it is really tough. So you have to like really like apply yourself to find the resources out there and get the help that you or somebody in your family might need. So, I just want to thank you again, Allison, for coming on here and, bringing up this topic, because it's good to talk about all of these things. They do exist, and they need to be brought out into the light so that,
Yeah. Yeah. And ElfQuest, I think, really, there was nothing else like it at the time. I mean, we're talking the 80s when I discovered it, and there was nothing else that was a resource. We obviously didn't have the internet, and our parents weren't around because remember, we were feral. And
Right.
so, like, you know, even just the solace of opening those pages and be like, okay, there are other representations of suffering, bullying, all the things right here in the pages. So I'm not alone. I mean, I think the best I could do is go to like Walden Books or whatever it was in the mall and hit the self-help, aisle. But like, obviously in middle school, that was just not what I was going to do. Like, no. So I had ElfQuest.
Yeah, one of my guests for this year, the voice actor Hugo Pierre Martin, he wrote a blog post about being raised by ElfQuest.
Yes.
And it's so true in a way that I think, like, for our generation, like, we really did find these role models and examples in books and music and some TV shows, because our parents, like, I don't know, it just seems, it's not like they were bad parents necessarily. It was just like more like they had more of their lives like centered, whereas like now sometimes the kids are the center of like everything, and it's, you're like, oh, like you feel like you have to do all of this stuff like all the time and be like around. And like, I think like there was a lot more like autonomy as we were like figuring out who we wanted to be. And we took these examples from the stuff that we were consuming, and luckily we were consuming some of the best stuff ever to become these.
I mean, my parents were boomers. Their parents were Depression era. So, like, if you want to liken like Depression era parenting to Kavi, probably you survive, you scrape, like that's all it's about. And then boomer parents, depends on what you got. You either got the hippies or the other side. And, they were taught to, you deal with your stuff and, shut up and get over it and figure it out and be resilient and, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Our parents were working and, so, at least for us and, probably true for some of the millennials for sure. We were just figuring it out on our own and taking it wherever we could get it.
Yes. Yeah. I love that, like the young fans too, like they get so many other fresh things from this story, and I love that they're kind of discovering it. I like hearing their points of view, and I'm glad it's here in like new media forms in bookstores now, like for more people to find and hopefully get some, positive representation and to find their place in their tribe. And, I've read that, reading fiction like builds empathy. And I just encourage, everybody like to do that, to build your empathy and find your community and, service that community and, treat everybody as best you can. So we are coming up on our hour, which
that blew by.
I
just want to encourage people if they're struggling, like, even if it's just a tiny moment, don't get overwhelmed. Make small goals. Maybe your goal for the day is that you manage to put some clean pants on, and that's great. But, if you can go a step further and reach out, and get the help that you need. It's available. It may take a little time, but it is, and you're deserving of feeling happy and healthy.
Oh, thank you, Allison. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, everyone in the chat. All of your comments have been super helpful and caring, and thank you for sharing and spending time with me. This is the final episode of season 2, so thank you for riding with me for this whole season. If you are new here, please like this video and leave a comment and let me know what you want me to talk about next season. Please consider subscribing to the Sci-Fi Sisters Inc. channel. We have lots of wonderful content, and be a part of our community, because we would love to have you. And this is like feel good stuff. Like we are here for everyone to find their tribe and be a part of something great and positive. So please consider doing that. And if you would like to get your brand in front of our eclectic, loyal community, we would love to have you as a sponsor. So click the link, check the link in the description box of this show about being a sponsor. And I would like to thank my sponsor for this season, Housebar. Housebar is a Black-owned business here in the Washington, D.C. area, and they provide lovely small batch spirits and alcoholic and non-alcoholic and lovely snacks. So check out Housebar in Navy Yard or Georgetown. And also we have new merch.
New merch,
and all the proceeds from any of the merch in the link, also in the description box, goes to, and the QR code there, go to the Subrina Wood Legacy Fund. And applications are open now for the Go Boldly grants. So these are 2 micro grants of $500 to support STEAM, STEM, cinema, all kinds of things. It's open to help support everybody to be their best selves and find their joy. So check that out as well. Their applications are open through December 1st, I believe. So thank you for all of the support so far. And thank you for joining me, Allison.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for loaning me your ElfQuest books.
And you have far surpassed me.
I'm a little obsessive, but anyway, thank you so much, everybody. Please take care of each other. Keep going with this community. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, because we will be on a break until this January. We'll be back with season 3 in January. But you can follow me on Instagram, 2 Moons and a Microphone on Instagram. And, I might pop in with a little, who knows what, while, we're on a break, and, send me some ideas about what you want me to talk about in the next season. I'd love to hear from you. So here, everywhere, Instagram, leave a comment on any of the old videos, any of those things. And please also come back next week for the live show and Soul of the Story. So the live show on Tuesday night at 9:30 here, and Soul of the Story with Derek Tyler Attico on Wednesday night next week at 9:30. So I think that's it. So thank you so much. Shade and sweet water, everyone. Good night.